Should I stop neck sizing my brass? We're going to get into it, so stick around. All right, so right now the internet is all abuzz with the topic, at least in the reloading community, on whether or not you should neck size or full length resize your brass. Now, full disclosure, I have been neck sizing my precision rifles for a long time, a number of years, and it's always worked pretty good for me. I've not noticed any problems with it, and generally speaking, you know, I consider that to be my more accurate ammunition, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's the right process for you or even for me. So currently I'm actually working on a new load development for my Remington 700 PCR. It's 6.5 Creedmoor, and I thought it would be an interesting topic to explore with a couple of videos. So my thought is maybe I can string together a couple of videos on the topic and maybe demonstrate some of the processes and what results I'm getting out of doing it, and maybe compare down the road, compare it against neck sizing. So that would take a couple of videos to do that. So if you guys are really interested in this, you know, give me a thumbs up, like, comment, or do something, subscribe, whatever. Let me know that you're interested in not spinning my wheels on the topic for no reason. So also, I think it'd be beneficial to really know what you guys are doing out there in the field, maybe with your own load development, and maybe I can pick up a couple of tips or tricks with that. I've got some current load stuff that I would like to go over with you a little bit, and maybe I can get your insight on that. So should be interesting topic. So before we do that, before we get into the targets and look at my current load development, I want to talk a little bit about neck sizing process and go over maybe some of the pros and cons of both, and then we'll wrap up the video from there. The argument really comes down to a couple things. It has to do with accuracy and reliability, and then case life. Those are really the big areas that people will often argue one point or the other. And so as we know, when a case is fired, it will expand up against the chamber, and it will reduce its size a little bit. And once it reaches peak pressure and the bullet's ejected, it will shrink down just a little bit, okay? And that allows for the extraction of the case. But what happens is that case forms to the chamber, so it matches the diameter of the chamber, all right? And we know this because we can measure that, right? We can measure the case. Here I've got a fired 223 case, and a case gauge is a 223 case gauge, and this will tell me whether or not my brass is in spec. So this fired case, put it in there, and you can see, all right, it does not fit, okay? Here I've got a fully resized case, so this is not neck size, this is a fully resized case, and of course it does fit into that case gauge without any problem, okay? And new brass will do the same thing. So one of the problems that you run into with brass, as that expansion happens back and forth, it hardens that brass, and it shortens the life of the brass, if you will. So the argument of neck sizing is you don't work this brass as much over time, and therefore you retain its elasticity or its memory in the brass. So if we look at a regular reloading die, a regular resizing die, I've got this here is a Lee 223 die, and I pulled the expander ball, mandrel, or whatever out of this so we can get a look at it. What happens is when that case is run up in there, okay, it's under a tremendous amount of force, and then we know that because we have to lube that, right? And what's happening is applying the pressure to the case, and it's bumping the shoulder back, so it's going to reduce the dimensions here, okay? Now, when that happens, it actually will push, brass material will actually flow, and it can make your brass, in some cases, make your brass a little long, and you may have to trim it, okay? So I like to think this kind of like a two-step process. So when I go ahead and I insert it in the die, it will go in, it will pass this little area here, it's known as the expander ball, and it's going to clear it because the neck is a wider diameter, okay? And then it's going to go to the other side. Once it gets past the expander ball, the die is going to reduce this neck down, and then as it draws back out, it's going to pass that expander ball again, and it's going to resize it and bring it out to the proper neck seating diameter, okay? And that's why I kind of think of it a little bit as a two-step process. Well, if we look at that, what's happened is we fired the brass, Now we've resized it where we've manipulated the brass, the shoulder, the neck, everything. And we've reduced this neck down. We've expanded it. Now we've reduced it. And then when we draw it back out again over the expander ball, we have expanded it or moved it again. So it's actually moved 3 times. So when we look at the mechanism for a collet die, this is the Lee Neck Collet Die, and this one operates differently. So we're not ramming the brass necessarily into the die to reshape it. So we'll take that apart and look at it. So this is actually for a 308. We got about 3 pieces in here. Of course, you've got your sleeve here. Then we've got the collet itself. We've got a mandrel and then a die. So the way this is designed is as the brass is pushed into the die, there's plenty of space. So it's not making contact with any part of the body here, okay? You don't have any need really for any lubrication because you're not going to manipulate the outer diameter here. You're not messing with the shoulder. The only thing you're doing is reducing the neck diameter here. And the way this works mechanically is as you apply pressure to the ram and it compresses the whole die body itself, it will squeeze down on this collet, and the collet will squeeze the brass neck around the mandrel here, okay? All right, and that will put the neck tension back in. So we know this is 308, so just for fun, let's see what this measures. Okay. Oops, there we go. 0.306, so it's a 2/1000th of an inch difference there. If we compared that to the expander ball on this, I guess I should have got the 308 one since I'm screwing with 308, but it is what it is. My camera screen keeps turning off, so it's the distraction. Okay, so yeah, 223, so about 1,000. And my thought here is that as it passes over this expander ball, it's a little tighter, and then once it relieves, it's going to be probably about 2.5, something like that. So one of the things I like about the process is it's very simple. All you got to do is get the die set up. You don't have to worry about lubrication and any kind of issues like that. It's just a very quick, easy process. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and demonstrate that process to you, and then we'll come back. Okay, so we're doing some sizing for the 6.5 with the Lee Collet Die. So I thought we could take a look at the process here, how this actually works. So I've got my fired cases here. Now these have already been neck sized once already, okay? All right, so, and I did make note of the overall length when I got them. And it's very consistent. It's in that 1.91 to 1.913-ish range. And I didn't have to trim them or anything like that. And as you notice, after a single firing of being neck size, I really didn't get a lot of movement. I would expect more of that. But these are moderate loads, so maybe there's not a lot of movement. Now the nice thing about the Lee die, this collet die, is you're not forcing all that material to move up. You're not inducing that stress, so you're kind of you're only putting pressure on the neck area here. So we'll also check interior dimensions here of the neck, because we're going to watch that. So 0.266, of course our bullet diameter is 0.264. About 2/1000th of an inch of movement from when it's fired, so not a whole lot. So what we're going to do is we'll pop it in here, we'll go ahead and resize it. So it's going to decap it, which is cool. And we're going to head and that collet's going to clamp down on the neck, and that's it. So now we'll go ahead and check interior dimensions. So we're looking for is just a couple thousandths of an inch off the diameter, so that's good. You can see at 0.262. That's pretty good. If I move it around, yeah, so that's good. Let's try that again. We'll check that diameter again. So it's 0.267 there on that one. Pop that in here. It's going to decap it. All right, and we'll check the neck dimension again. 0.262. That's really good. That's what we want. It's very, very consistent. Works very well on this rock checker. So, okay. And this is about a 3/4 turn, by the way. I think Lee recommends like 1 or 1.5, but it's a feel thing that I get, and I'm kind of measuring this interior. So 0.262 again, and we'll check our overall lengths. All right, 1.911. I busted the face on these calibers. One of these days I'm going to replace that. Let me check the interior dimensions again. The hell, this one's, there we go. Let me get that dude in there. Okay. And look at that. That's very tight. How funny is that? About 0.263, 0.264. Do I need to check that? There we go. 0.267. And we'll check that. Sorry, I got a phone call. All right. There you go, 0.262. Not too bad. All right, so I'll finish these out and we'll get back to the video. Okay, as you can see, it's a fairly simple process and it's very consistent, at least as far as getting reliable neck tension. So really the last thing to really talk about in that is whether or not it's reliable. And I think that's really the concern for a lot of people that will tend to do the full length over that. And when I say full length, I'm not talking about bringing it back to full SAMI spec. We're just going to bump the shoulder back a couple thousandths of an inch, which I think is really interesting. So let me show you what I got going on with this current load. I've got a couple targets here. So I went back and I drug out some targets from my load development that I'm working on. So if I got these kind of lined up right. So what this is I've got some load development with some Hornady 140 grain both hollow points, and the case is a Hornady case, CCI primer, and some RL17. And these are targets from the ladder test when I initially started. Now this is, everything that you're seeing here is from new brass. They've not been resized, they've not been neck sized, so I want to be clear about that. So just brand new brass and a brand new rifle. It may have had, I think when this was shot, maybe 50 rounds or so in the rifle, so it's still really getting broke in. But as you can see in this target, this was a group that I pulled out that I liked out of the ladder test, and I grabbed this one too, and I'll explain that one here in a minute. But this one here, as you can see, I had a 5-shot average of 0.65 is what I measured, and then the 4 out of 5, this is just something I do to kind of check to see what the flyer spread or the average spread is, just to see if there's a lot of deviation between the two. And I apologize, I don't have the average deviation on that because I lost the sheet initially that I had for this stuff. So, but that's what I got out of that one. And then this other one here, as you can see, I had a 1.051 inch, and then the 4 out of 5 was 0.048. So I've got a bullet that's really hanging out there off to the side. But this one was 39.1 grains, and then this one was a 41.3. So I grabbed this load because I like this one just because it was the best higher velocity load that I had out of the two. So what I did is I went ahead and loaded these two up, and it went back out to the range. And now nothing's really changed other than that it's a new load, but it's new brass, same bullets, and I grabbed these two loads, so I've got my 39.1 and my 41.3, and I know that because of how I named them. I got my own little naming convention I do for my load development. So my 01M, it was the 39.1, and my 02M was my 41.3. Now, what you can see, and now as I mentioned before, these are not neck size or not resized. This is just new brass. And what's happened is my group that was shooting the best out of my ladder test, I've got a 5-shot group now of 0.887, okay? And you can see the group here. And then my other group, not so well. I went from about an inch to 1.778. So this one really lost it. But you can see something going on that's very consistent between these two groups. I've got a nice tight group and then a flyer, and then a tight group and then a flyer. I think this one was 0.753 and this one was 0.379. So I'm curious as to what is necessarily causing that. Now the rifle is a chassis system. I'm shooting off a rest. I'm getting 4 of those shots in pretty good place, but I'm pulling one. Now it's very possible it just could be the shooter, but I've got a theory, and I think it has to do with the fact that it's new brass. Those of you guys that are experienced with that, you might chime in and let me know if that's the case, or if you think it's something else, let me know what's going on here. So this is kind of interesting. Now what I've done since this load is I've already taken this load and I've loaded it. I went out to the range and actually qualified out at 600 with this load, and I got to go back and qualify at 1,000. So my plan is I'm going to redo that load again just as it is because it's worked pretty good. And I went ahead and I shot that load, which was really my fire foreign brass. I shot that load with no issues. The only thing I would note as a problem is when I was chambering around, sometimes it would kind of catch a little bit, and that was unique to this rifle potentially. I don't know, but that's kind of what was going on. But this one was fire foreign, and I know that because the way I annotated on here is it's the same load data, so 01, but it's fire foreign for the 700 piece. I got PRC, but it's PCR, and it's on its second fire. So this was neck sized, but I didn't capture the group size, so I don't have any of that data. But here's my thought. What I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and load that again. So it'll be the third load, and it will be the second time I've neck sized it, so it's not been resized whatsoever. I'm going to go out and capture that. I'm going to shoot a 5-shot group, and then I'll get the average deviation and all that stuff figured out, and then we can take a look at it. And I thought for fun, I'll just shoot this group again out of this load because I still have this load. This is brand new brass, okay? I got plenty of ammunition in that one because I did load that one up, but I will fire that one as kind of a control to see if I can pull that flyer in a little bit and maybe tighten that group back out. And then we can go back and we'll compare that. And then over the long run, with this load, particularly with this brass, I will just start neck sizing, or I'm sorry, I'll just start full length resizing and then compare that back to this other load. And we'll see if this group, which one actually performs better than the other. Now, I will make sure that they're the same load, so I will take this load data once I'm done with this box. I won't use this load data. But that's how I'm going to do that. And I don't know. Who knows? Maybe we'll learn something. At least I will. I don't know. So it should be interesting. Hope you liked the video. If you got questions or comments or recommendations for me, please put a comment. Again, don't forget to like and subscribe. I do appreciate it. Thank you guys. I'll see you.